to News 18 Punjab, Haryana's Education Conclave 2023. Education Conclave, Schools of Excellence का ये मंच है देश के नंबर 1 न्यूज चैनल नेटवर्क न्यूज 18 का, जिस पर करोड़ों व्यूअर्स भरोसा करते हैं क्योंकि न्यूज 18 ही है जो सबसे पहले हर सटीक खबर आप तक पहुंचाता है और आपसे जुड़े हर जरूरी मुद्दे को उठाकर आपकी आवाज बनता है। Legendary leader Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." यानी एजुकेशन से दुनिया बदली जा सकती है। एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में अपना डंका बजाने वाला पंजाब आज अपने वर्ल्ड क्लास एजुकेशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए दुनिया भर में मशहूर है। यहाँ लीडिंग एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं जो स्टूडेंट्स के एकेडमिक स्किल एंड ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट की दिशा में सराहनीय काम कर रहे हैं। और आज इस सबसे बड़े मंच पर हम आपके सामने लेकर आए हैं एजुकेशन सेक्टर के वो लीडर्स जिनके डेडिकेशन, विजन और अचीवमेंट्स ने पंजाब से लेकर नॉर्थ इंडिया और पूरे देश में शिक्षा जगत में नई पहचान बनाई है। एजुकेशन लीडर्स के नाम आज का ये मंच है न्यूज 18 पंजाब हरियाणा एजुकेशन कॉन्क्लेव स्कूल्स ऑफ एक्सीलेंस का, पावर्ड बाय मूव टू अब्रॉड, विदेश जाने के सपने को करें साकार, को पावर्ड बाय रिलायंस इंडस्ट्रीज लिमिटेड, डिजिटल लर्निंग पार्टनर TCY ऑनलाइन, ओवरसीज एजुकेशन पार्टनर ESS ग्लोबल, न्यूट्रिशन पार्टनर हेमिस बिस्किट्स, स्ट्रेंथ पार्टनर प्रबल TMT, स्पेशल पार्टनर्स गुरु नानक ग्रुप ऑफ कॉलेजेस एंड हाटन फर्नीचर। इस स्पेशल इवेंट को आप सबकी मौजूदगी ने और भी ज्यादा शानदार बना दिया है, जिसके लिए मैं एक बार फिर से अपॉर्चुनिटी लेना चाहूंगी आप सबका वेलकम करने के लिए और आपको थैंक्स कहने के लिए। इस कार्यक्रम के पीछे हमारा मकसद है पंजाब के एजुकेशन सेक्टर के करंट सिनेरियो, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, चैलेंजेस और प्रेपरेशन के बारे में बात करना। आज बतौर चीफ गेस्ट अपनी प्रेजेंस से हमारे स्टेज की शोभा बढ़ाएंगे पंजाब के एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर मिस्टर हरजोत सिंह बैन। अलग अलग सेशन में एजुकेशन सेक्टर के लीडर्स अपने सुझाव देंगे, अपने ओपिनियंस आपके साथ शेयर करेंगे। इस महामंच पर सम्मानित किए जाएंगे वो लीडर्स जो अपने विजन, मिशन और कंट्रीब्यूशन के साथ साथ अचीवमेंट से पंजाब की शिक्षा जगत को नई ऊंचाइयों पर पहुंचा रहे हैं। शिक्षा को समर्पित ये मंच साक्षी बनेगा संगीत के जादू का भी। जी हाँ, आज इस मंच पर अपनी स्पेशल परफॉर्मेंस से आप सबको झूमने पर मजबूर कर देंगी मशहूर सूफी सिंगर डॉक्टर ममता जोशी। बट बिफोर वी डाइव इनटू आवर फर्स्ट सेशन, लेट्स टेक अ क्विक लुक एट द AV टू गिव यू मोर इंफॉर्मेशन ऑन द शो। थैंक यू। कैन वी हैव द AV प्लीज?
पंजाब की धरती अपने हरे भरे खेत खलिहानों के लिए जानी जाती है। अनाज उत्पादन में देश में अग्रणी रहने वाला पंजाब अब क्वालिटी एजुकेशन का भी हब बन गया है, जहां देश के लीडिंग एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट्स, एडवांस्ड एजुकेशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, लेटेस्ट फैसिलिटीज और स्किल्ड फैकल्टीज के साथ देश और दुनिया भर के स्टूडेंट्स के सपनों को पंख दे रहे हैं। पंजाब सरकार की बेहतर शिक्षा नीति, प्रयास और सहयोग से आज पंजाब में वर्ल्ड क्लास एजुकेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, जिसे लाखों स्टूडेंट्स ग्लोबल स्टैंडर्ड्स के मुताबिक गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा हासिल कर रहे हैं। थीमेटिक करिकुलम के जरिए बच्चों के एकेडमिक्स के साथ उनके ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट पर पूरा फोकस किया जा रहा है। नेशनल और ग्लोबल एजुकेशनल सिनेरियो में धाक जमा चुके पंजाब के एजुकेशन सिस्टम से जुड़े मुद्दों को सामने लाना जरूरी है। पंजाब का एजुकेशन सेक्टर कितनी तेजी से ग्रोथ कर रहा है, देश को सुपर इकोनॉमी बनाने का लक्ष्य हासिल करने में पंजाब का एजुकेशन सेक्टर किस तरह योगदान दे रहा है, एजुकेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के एडवांसमेंट में अभी और क्या कदम उठाए जाने हैं, ऐसे कई जरूरी पहलुओं पर बातचीत का महामंच लेकर आ रहा है न्यूज 18, एक ऐसा मंच जहां एजुकेशन सेक्टर के लीडर्स होंगे एक साथ। पैनल डिस्कशन में जरूरी मुद्दों के जवाब तलाशे जाएंगे, साथ ही एजुकेशनल रोड मैप भी तैयार किया जाएगा ताकि पंजाब बना रहे क्वालिटी एजुकेशन की बेस्ट डेस्टिनेशन। इस अनूठी पहल का आज साक्षी बनने जा रहा है न्यूज 18 पंजाब हरियाणा एजुकेशन कॉन्क्लेव 2023।
All right, let's dive directly into the first session of the day, and the name of the session is Driving Change. And for this session, to moderate this session, may I please invite on stage Managing Director News 18 Punjab, Jyoti Kamal. प्लीज आप मेरे साथ मंच पर आ जाएं और फिर हम अपने मेहमानों को भी न्योता देंगे कि वो मंच पर आए. मिस्टर रॉबिन अग्रवाल, चेयरमैन TIE एंड डायरेक्टर लर्निंग पाथ स्कूल, एंड मिस्टर विनीत जैन, co-founder and CEO.
Thank you so much, Misha. Thank you so much to all the people who managed to take the time out to attend this event today here. Thank you so much, Robin, Vineet.
Thank you.
I mean, while we have all gathered here to talk about school education, to talk about all the aspects, the components of it, the most critical component there are the students themselves. And they are going through a tough time. I mean, if you look at it from 5th and 6th, like we were talking earlier, 7th, 8th is when the pressure starts mounting. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, the academic pressure is mounting. You have to start focusing on the educational system. You have to start kind of identifying what is it that you want to do. You have to start figuring out what are the trends in the world. You have to start coping with the pressure that is being put by your parents, because they have their own aspirations that they are trying to get you to fulfill. And parallelly, you have your own biological changes taking place. You are turning from a child into an adult. Those are your teenage years where you want to be rebellious. So all of this is going on at the same time. It's a complicated time for a student. And here we have this whole kind of talk going on, what should we do and what is it that we can do and how can we kind of make sure that their aspirations are fulfilled. So, I mean, if I start with you, Robin, you are the president of the Indus Entrepreneurs. It's an organization that clearly looks at startups, it clearly looks at creating business success, it clearly looks at kind of taking businesses forward. And you have also founded and run a school. So when you look at that and you see these challenges in front of you, how do you look at the educational system today? Do you feel that it's like it's sharpened up fairly? Do you still see some rough, jagged edges somewhere which need smoothing out? Do you feel that it has a number of challenges? How do you look upon this whole situation today?
Thank you, Jyoti, for inviting us at this conference. Let me start, from an industry point of view, right? If you talk to any business leader today, right, any category, what they will tell you, the biggest challenge they face is the quality of the manpower. It is not the business environment, it is not politics, it is the quality of manpower, right? And now let's correlate this thought to the education system, right? India has one of the biggest education systems in the world, right? Both government and private. That we teach more than 30 crore students, right, in between college and school education. That's bigger than the population of multiple countries, right? So there is a gap between our education system and the quality of the manpower from an industry point of view, right? And this gap will always remain, right? One of the fundamental reasons is industry moves at a speed which education system can't. So this gap will remain. Now our country, like this the government, the central government has come out with a visionary document called New Education Policy, which has come after 25 years. This itself tells you that the gap, we change our cars every 5 years because of better technology. We have a curriculum document which has not been updated from 1990s, right? The fact that we need to pay more attention to our education system, first is the need of the hour. So there's the fact that we are discussing education today, even the Punjab government, even the central government today wants to improve the education system, is a welcome change, right? Secondly is, the new education document talks about interdisciplinary learning, it talks about skills, it talks about projects, it talks about internships for schools and college students. But our examination system is at variance with what the NEP wants to achieve. I think this is the biggest issue that our education system faces. Our students are today assessed on NEET exam, on JEE exam, on CUET, which only checks one form of learning. It does not accommodate the other forms of learning which are also important and which the government wants to emphasize, right? And as a result, a student will be confused, right? He or she will face pressure. Secondly, I feel parents need to be educated. Most of the, we focus on students. I think if we are able to change the perception of parents, right, students will change. So, just a couple of thoughts on this topic.
That's interesting, Robin. In fact, you spoke about the NEP, and in fact, the challenge being faced by a lot of educationists, a lot of people who are managing the school system, the college system, the higher education system, is precisely this, that on the one hand, everyone realizes that you need to have an interdisciplinary approach, you need to give a certain amount of freedom to students, you need to allow them to explore other options, you need to see whether there are other aspects to their personality, innovation, things they would like to explore, invent, all of that. Schools are trying to do that. But after all of that happens, when you have to now take a step into the future, you have to go through a standardized examination process. And when you look at that standardized examination process, it is the same JEE, it is the same kind of standardized examination system which requires a lot of rote learning, it requires a lot of repetition, it requires, of course, understanding concepts, but also a lot of repetition there. So all of this, while it is being encouraged, it is not being really assessed for success in the future. So how do you see this dichotomy? Like on the one hand, you are encouraging all of this to happen. On the other hand, you are not really marking for it. You are marking for a very standardized system. Right. So how do you see this division? Isn't this a lot of pressure on schools? Isn't this a lot of pressure on the student, on the parents, on everyone?
You see, it creates unnecessary and unexpected pressure. And a coaching industry is a direct beneficiary of this entire system, right? So we have schools which don't teach for JEE. Then for alternatively, we create a coaching industry, right, which teaches for JEE, NEET and other competitive examinations. And again, in the end, we have a student who is the victim here, right? And there's no easy solution.
Robin, this is a very interesting thing you said. There are schools who really focus on a lot of this process which equips you to kind of take these examinations. Parents there also feel that their kid is not getting enough. And so after the school is over, they try to get them to join an NGO, participate in activities, kind of do all sorts of personality development skills, because that school is focused on the mechanical part of education. There are other schools which are more focused on the creative side of it. Again, the parents are not satisfied with what's going on there. In the evening, they are putting their kids into that mechanical form of education. So it appears as if parents want both the things, but schools are deciding rather, okay, we'll go left or we'll go right. So is there something that schools can do about it?
See, again, schools also need to innovate at their own end, right? And there are all kind of schools. There are all kind of education institutions, right? There, even in this rigid space, a lot of schools have focused on innovation, have focused on, transferring skills to their students. Even universities are doing so. But these are isolated examples of change. They do not produce systematic change in the education system of our country.
Enter Vineet, Jain. Now when you see all of these kinds of situations happening vis-a-vis schools, parents, students, teachers, colleges, universities, you make an entry into it. Because now you decide and you think that there is a possible solution, that you actually figure out what could be the possible dimensions of a child that you could analyze, explore, figure out, guide the parents, thereafter guide the child and the parents into a direction that you think is the best possible fit. Why did you enter this space? You are running Catalyst Bureau, which is basically looking at building up a sort of a psychometric profile of the students so that you can figure out what is the innate potential in the child. Why did you enter this space?
सबसे पहले एजुकेशन सिस्टम विच यू सेड, मेरी डेफिनेशन एजुकेशन सिस्टम की उसके अंदर 3 पिलर्स आते हैं. Earlier it used to be only 2 pillars which we call basically a student and a school or a parent. Now the third pillar in the education system which has been added, it's a peer. In today's education system, peer pressure or the peer bonding is putting a hell lot of a pressure. That's the first thing in the education system. Second, education system में challenges हैं and they have own challenges. There is nothing right or wrong. But the biggest challenge which has shifted in last 5 years, I have been doing mentoring to more than now 1,000 students, the biggest challenge which I feel after listening to a student, the first question every student, आजकल का बच्चा और हमारी जनरेशन के बच्चों में एजुकेशन सिस्टम में फर्क मैं देख रहा हूं, पहला क्वेश्चन जो वो डालता है, डू यू नो मी? अब इसका जवाब मैंने देखा हर टीचर, हर स्कूल, हर पेरेंट एक ही चीज बोलता है. आप भी क्या बोलेंगे? सबसे पहले आपका बच्चा पूछेगा, डू यू नो मी? व्हाट डू यू विल से? Yes, I know you. And then what we will say? We will say all the things on history, past events. जो बच्चे ने किया या जो मैंने किया, yes, I know you. This question was asked by my son also. But finally, इसका आंसर जो है, do you know me, वो ये जानना चाहता है कि क्या आप ये जानते हैं, ये हिस्ट्री नहीं, मेरी हाई स्टोरी क्या है. ये सच में ही आजकल के बच्चों की वो है. मुझे हिस्ट्री में नहीं जाना, ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड माई हाई स्टोरी, और एज अ पेरेंट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड हिज और हर स्टोरी. दैट्स द एजुकेशन सिस्टम. दैट स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम अ हाउस, दैट स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम अ स्कूल. सेकेंड, ही आस्क्स और ही और शी आस्क्स, डू यू लव मी? अब ये भी बड़ा अजीब सा क्वेश्चन था. ज्यादातर अब एज अ पेरेंट आई यूज्ड टू से, यस बेटा, मेरे से ज्यादा अच्छा प्यार और कौन कर सकता है. मां कहती है, हां बहुत अच्छा प्यार करती हूं. बट अगेन स्टूडेंट्स का लव का डेफिनेशन है, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड माई माइंड एंड माई बिहेवियर. हेयर लाइज द डिफरेंस. एडुकेशन जितने भी चैलेंजेस आ रहे हैं, जो चेंजेस जनरेशन में हो रही हैं, वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड वेदर इट इज अ स्कूल, वेदर इट इज अ पेरेंट, or whether it is a peer, what is the mind saying and what is finally the behavior saying. And I have been realizing it, I have been going into schools. ये आज का one of the biggest challenge teacher के लिए भी बन जाता है. biggest challenge, उस बच्चे का mindset क्या है और behavior क्या है. And coming again to your question, our organization has a theory, that is a scientific theory, Jyoti ji. We have developed a theory, scientific theory called TST theory, where we try to understand first the thrill of a child. Thrill क्या है? उसका माइंड और बिहेवियर क्या कहता है, उसको हम कहते हैं थ्रिल. जिस समय आपके बच्चे को, आपको एज अ पेरेंट ये समझ आ जाए उसका थ्रिल क्या है, फिर कोई भी एजुकेशन सिस्टम हो ज्योति जी, एनीथिंग, आई एम गारंटिंग यू, उसके लिए करियर अटेन करना, उसके लिए अपने सपनों को साकार करना, इट इज नॉट एट ऑल डिफिकल्ट. लाइन सिर्फ जेई, लाइन सिर्फ ये नीट, सीयूटी और ये लाइन सिर्फ ये नहीं है. देर आर थाउजेंड्स ऑफ अदर लाइन विच स्टूडेंट्स आर नॉट एक्सपोज्ड टू, पेरेंट्स आर नॉट एक्सपोज्ड टू, और ये थ्रिल वहां से हम समझते हैं. जब हमें उस बच्चे की थ्रिल समझ आ जाती है, आवर नेक्स्ट स्टेप इज कि उसके माइंड और बिहेवियर के लिए हमें क्या चीजें, स्किल सेट चाहिए डेवलप करने के लिए, और ये हम स्कूल्स में भी यही सिखाते हैं. एक बच्चा है, मैं आपको छोटा सा एग्जांपल बताता हूं. जेई का जैसे आपने बोला, मां बाप बहुत अच्छे कंप्यूटर साइंस में है. वो बच्चा इस समय 12th में है. उनके मां बाप आए, मेरा बेटा भी 11th में आए थे, मेरा बेटा भी इंजीनियरिंग करना चाहता है. मैंने सबसे पहले बच्चे से क्वेश्चन पूछा, बेटा इंजीनियरिंग करना चाहते हो तो क्या करोगे? आईआईटी कंप्यूटर साइंस. उफ, आईआईटी कंप्यूटर साइंस. आई वाज इम्प्रेस्ड विद द चाइल्ड. मैं कहा बेटा आईआईटी कंप्यूटर साइंस में करोगे कैसे? ये नहीं पता, मम्मी पापा क्योंकि आईआईटी कंप्यूटर साइंस में है तो मैं भी आईआईटी कंप्यूटर साइंस में जाना. कैलिब्रेशन ऑफ थॉट्स. करीब 2 घंटे डिस्कशन चला और आप सरप्राइज हो गए, आज के दिन में वो बच्चा पता है क्या कर रहा है? एनी रफ आइडिया क्या करता होगा? आई थिंक ही गेस्ड इट सम टू राइट. ही इज अ फैंटास्टिक हिंदी राइटर. आईआईटी कंप्यूटर साइंस एंड हिंदी राइटर. उफ, 2 घंटे में मुझे उसकी थ्रिल पता लगी कि अंग्रेजी स्कूल में पढ़ने के बावजूद वो हिंदी के शब्दों को बहुत अच्छा पिरोता है. दैट्स अ थ्रिल. 2 साल उसे इसकी पूरी डेवलपमेंट में लगे, स्किल सेट में. एंड फाइनली द ड्रिल. जब हमें थ्रिल और स्किल पता लग जाती है, वहां पे ड्रिल आती है जिसको हम कहते हैं कोचिंग. कोचिंग, इट बिल्ड्स योर कॉम्पिटेंसीज एंड इट बिल्ड्स योर कैपेबिलिटीज. हमारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम में, एज ही राइटली पुट, कोचिंग सबसे पहले आती है, बाकी सारी चीजें बाद में आती हैं. इट कम्स टू द लास्ट. So our system is TST therapy, which basically changing the education system from a perspective of balancing mentoring, balancing coaching and balancing assessment.
विनीत, अगर हम इसको थोड़ा सा और एनालाइज करने की कोशिश करें, आपने बताया कि सिस्टम में प्रॉब्लम्स भी हैं जी. अभी आपने एक चीज ये भी बताई कि कंप्यूटर साइंस से हिंदी राइटिंग जी, तो ये इन ए वे जो सिंबॉलिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन भी है इसकी कि कंप्यूटर साइंस को हम ऊपर मान रहे हैं, हिंदी राइटिंग को हम नीचे मान रहे हैं. तो एक तो हमारी यहां पर भी एक इशू है कि हम किस प्रोफेशन को बेहतर समझते हैं, किस चीज को हम समझते हैं कि ये कम है, इसमें ज्यादा तरक्की होनी चाहिए. लेकिन साथ ही हम जिस एजुकेशन सिस्टम की बात करें, अल्टीमेटली हम बार बार ये कहते हैं कि ये अंग्रेजों का दिया हुआ सिस्टम है. उनको एक पूरी क्लर्क्स की आर्मी चाहिए थी, उन्होंने एक स्टैंडर्डाइज सिस्टम एजुकेशन का बना दिया कि बस ये आपने पढ़ना है, ये सब्जेक्ट आपको करने पड़ेंगे, ये आपको चीजें आनी पड़ेंगी, आपको इंग्लिश आनी पड़ेगी, ताकि जब आपके पास डॉक्यूमेंट्स आएंगे, जब उनका कॉलोनियल एम्पायर चल रहा था, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि डॉक्यूमेंट्स ड्राफ्ट कैसे करने हैं, उनका काम चलता रहना चाहिए. वहां पर उन्होंने ऑक्सफोर्ड बना ली, कैम्ब्रिज बना ली, यहां ये सिस्टम इंप्लीमेंट कर दिया. But all said and done, is it such a bad system? Because at the end of the day, we are sitting here, all of us have gone through schooling, India has progressed, the world has progressed, humanity has progressed. The kind of comforts that we have, Maharajas couldn't enjoy it. You couldn't get ice at your home at any point in time, even if you were Akbar or Humayun. Today you can get ice in a refrigerator anytime you want. So what I'm trying to say is, all said and done, the education system has worked. It has taken society forward.
Yes.
So the question is, when we go on debating about it, what are we trying to do? Why I'm asking you this is so that we understand what is the root issue of human nature that we are trying to work on. Do we want to do more? Do we want to learn more? Do we want to earn more? Do we want to invent more? Basically, are we even greedy about education, that we want more and more and more of it? So what is this whole drive towards? How do you see it? Just exploring your thoughts.
Yeah. No education system is bad. अगर अंग्रेजों ने कुछ शुरू किया,
Robin, you will also weigh in on this.
अगर
After him.
अगर अंग्रेजों ने कुछ शुरू किया तो वो भी कुछ सोच के शुरू किया. एजुकेशन सिस्टम में जो बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, विच इज द लर्निंग, विच इज यू कैन से द लैंग्वेज, और एनीथिंग विच इज बेसिक विच टेक्स यू टुवर्ड्स द नेक्स्ट स्टेप्स, दैट इज मस्ट. Now with times, what has happened in last 10 years, our mindset is changing. Student psyche is changing. They are not at all against कि हाँ मुझे engineer बनना है. They are not at all against I want to become a doctor. They are not at all against I want to do something. But the only psyche which is changing, that is I want to become what I want to become. That's a change. पहले सिस्टम में क्या था? एक ठप्पा था, और वो ठप्पा क्या था? ये पढ़ लो, ये कर लो तो इतना पैसा कमा लोगे. आज पहले सिस्टम था लर्निंग टू सर्व, या था भी नहीं, मुझे भी नहीं पता, अंग्रेजों ने सिखाया कि नहीं मुझे नहीं पता. बट नाउ द सिस्टम इज एक्चुअली, जब मैं बात करता हूं, पढ़ना भी चाहते हैं और पैसा भी कमाना चाहते हैं, दोनों चीजें करना चाहते हैं. उसमें जो बैलेंसिंग है वो कैसे करनी है, वो एजुकेशन सिस्टम का सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है आज के दिन में. और अगर हम सब बैठे हैं, आई थिंक चैलेंज, हम बात कर रहे हैं रूरल इंडिया की, हमारी 70% पॉपुलेशन तो इस समय कहां बैठी है? सॉरी, हम अर्बन इंडिया की बात कर रहे हैं, कहां बैठी है? रूरल इंडिया में. अगर आई डोंट नो वेदर यू हैव रेड अ आर्टिकल ऑफ टुडे और नॉट विच केम इन न्यूज़पेपर, शायद वहां पे लैंग्वेज रीडिंग भी एक प्रॉब्लम है आज के दिन में. सो मुझे नहीं पता कि एजुकेशन सिस्टम अगर पूरा इंप्रूव करना है, इट्स अ स्टेप, ऑब्वियसली वी आर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स अर्बन इंडिया. रूरल इंडिया एक और पार्ट है जहां पे इंटेलेक्ट की कमी नहीं है, बट वहां के एजुकेशन सिस्टम को किस तरीके से इंप्रूव करना है. आई थिंक फाइंडिंग आंसर्स, वी नीड टू फाइंड आंसर्स फॉर ऑल दोज थिंग्स. देयर इंटेलेक्ट की कोई कमी नहीं, इंटेलिजेंस की कोई कमी नहीं है. हैव आई आंसर्ड योर क्वेश्चन और नॉट?
Yep. So let's see if Robin adds to it.
See, nobody knows what will happen in next 30 years. But there are two broad trends which are undisputed. One is climate is changing, right? We are leaving an earth which is worse for our kids than what we inherited. There is no argument about it. Second is that technology has fundamentally changed. Right? We have more access to information. Our children are much more, the technology exists for them. Right? These two broad trends will decide the future of us and our kids. Now, to solve these problems, we can't have an education system which promotes rote learning. See, the memorization of facts is available on fingertips today. Now, if we have to solve problems like climate change, we need thinkers, right? And that's a reality. When the climate change is a reality, we can't take that away. Secondly, now with artificial intelligence, machine learning coming into our society, which is available to us at fingertips, that means memorization of facts is not required. We need to be problem solvers. If we want to solve those problems, then our education system needs to change. That is so what served us for last 50 years. See, when India became independent, we need more doctors, we needed more engineers. Our education system responded to that. We need problem solvers. Right? So our education system needs to change to produce problem solvers.
That's an important point, problem solvers. In fact, we have Dr. Rudra Pratap after this, Plaksha University, which is precisely trying to address this issue. How do we create people who think? How do we solve the big problems, the grand challenges? But if I had to ask you, because you have seen the system close up, we have several boards which are operating in the country. You have ICSE, you have CBSE, you have IB. How do you evaluate them? I mean, if you had to kind of take a call on it.
See, the biggest board in our country is UP State Education Board.
Again?
Uttar Pradesh Education Board is the biggest board in our country. We don't even acknowledge the state boards. Right? CBSE is probably 3 to 5%. State boards constitute 80% of our education standards in our country. And that is where the dichotomy is, that we don't even acknowledge state boards.
This is a very interesting fact that you are giving. I mean, all of us probably don't keep this in mind, that CBSE, as you said, is about 5%.
3 to 5%. UP State Education Board is the biggest education board in our country, just by the sheer population of the UP as a state. And so the gap between CBSE and ICSE and all other boards form 10 to 15% of our system. The rest 85% is state education boards, and I feel the biggest gap today is not the CBSEs and ICSEs, and both have their merits and demerits. The biggest gap is between the state boards and CBSE and ICSE and IB. I think that is a gap that we need to think about, and unless again we solve that, we will not affect the mass of our country. Right? An average student coming out of state board, his skills and the skills of a student coming out of CBSE, and we can debate about CBSE, that's the biggest challenge. And there is where the role of state governments come into the picture, because they control the standards of the state boards.
Vineet, if you had to kind of take a student who wants to do something which is different from what the parents or the school is geared to be able to execute very well, thereafter you kind of analyze the student and you figure out that he or she has potential in a certain area.
That's true.
And then you see that the circumstances around that particular student are not really matching with what that student wants to do.
Exactly.
Yet the aspiration is there. While we just said that we should do what we want to do, but in these circumstances, how do you make all of this work? The student wants to do something for which the system is not geared to providing the resources, and the system thereafter for higher education is definitely on a different track. So how does all of this work? Do they drop out of the system and pursue their dream? Do they stay within the system and pursue their dream? How does it work?
The two Ds, which generally this question focuses on two Ds. First is, what is the desire of a child? And secondly, what is the dream of a parent? That's the biggest question, or that's the biggest two Ds which everybody faces.
I'll just interrupt you for a second. The new education policy, the national education policy, it also allows you in the undergrad course, if it's a 4-year course, to allow you to drop out at any stage.
Yes.
And then give you a corresponding degree. You drop out in the first year, you get a diploma. You drop out in the second year, you get an advanced diploma. And it also allows you multiple points of re-entry. You can exit, come back. You can again exit, again come back. So in that sense, it has become a more flexible system.
Yes.
But I mean, if you would continue.
Now the challenge is how to synergize these two Ds. चाहे वो स्कूल के समय पे हो, चाहे वो घर पर हो. Now, how do we do it? That's more important. Challenge is there. We have been doing it for last almost now 9 years. इसमें कुछ नहीं करना है. Nothing has to be done. Once you identify the desire of a child, the biggest role anybody plays, that's a parent. Maximum time a child spends, it's at a home. We are training parallelly parents also. Do not ask a simple question. फिजिक्स में मार्क्स कितने आए बेटा, मैथ्स में मार्क्स कितने आए, और इसके आने के बाद अगला क्वेश्चन ये क्या होता है, ये क्यों कम आए. भाई ये क्वेश्चन तो मैं भी एज अ बेटा आपको डाल सकता हूं. ट्राई टू फाइंड इट आउट कि अगर उसका इन दोनों चीजों में मार्क्स कम आ रहे हैं और पैरेलली ही वांट्स टू चेंज अ लाइन, स्टार्ट आस्किंग अ बेसिक क्वेश्चन. क्या करना चाहते हो, किस तरीके से करना चाहते हो, एंड देन स्टार्ट फाइंडिंग द वेज ऑफ मेकिंग दैट डिजायर कम ट्रू. दैट्स अ फर्स्ट स्टेप. सेकेंड स्टेप इज टुवर्ड्स द स्कूल. मैं स्कूल्स में जितने जा रहा हूं, आई हैव बीन हेल्पिंग देम अ लॉट. आई हैव बीन हेल्पिंग देम दैट द लास्ट 5 years देयर इज अ चेंज इन अ सिनेरियो. हाउ हमारी जो फाउंडेशन आज से 6 साल पहले शुरू होती थी, वो शुरू होती थी 10th या 11th से. आप याद करिए, यहां पे कुछ पेरेंट्स लग नहीं रहा, ऑल आर यंग. पुराने वाले कुछ पेरेंट्स भी होंगे, मैं भी पुराने उसमें से ही हूं. जो सबसे पहले बच्चे जब 10वीं में आ जाता था, तो पहला क्वेश्चन क्या होता था, भाई करियर क्या बनाना है. यही पहला क्वेश्चन होता था. इंजीनियरिंग करनी है, डॉक्टरेट करनी है. द फाउंडेशन फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम 10th or 11th. Now the scenario has changed. The first question I train schools, it should start coming from 8th class. That's a foundation stage. बच्चे से पूछना शुरू करो, हेल्प करना शुरू करो, करना क्या है जिंदगी में. वो किस लिए, हर चीज का एक टाइम स्पैन है with competition increasing. You go 10 years back, competition was 92% आ गए, बहुत अच्छा है. आज के दिन में जब 12th में भी 98% मार्क्स आते हैं ना, पेरेंट को फोन करो, हाँ जी की होया, बस जी ठीक ठाक ही रहा रिजल्ट. व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय ठीक ठाक ही रहा रिजल्ट? वो 98% ही आए ने जी, दूजे दिन 99 भी सीगे. दैट्स अ माइंडसेट चेंज. बट डिफरेंस इज every course, try to understand, we teach everybody, every course has a time span. आपने इंजीनियरिंग करनी है, आपने आईआईटी करनी है, आपको 8वीं से अपना पैटर्न शुरू करना पड़ेगा. दिस इज द डिफरेंस वी आर डूइंग इट इन स्टडिंग, इन एडुकेटिंग अ चाइल्ड, इन एडुकेटिंग अ स्टूडेंट, इन एडुकेटिंग अ पेरेंट.
That's right. So, I mean, Robin, if I had to ask you the last question, which is, whenever at least I look around, a lot of my colleagues, friends, people look around, they are all the time looking for people to join them in terms of jobs. There are jobs. And I also see students all around, or people who are seeking jobs, who are looking for employers. And yet, when that fit is attempted, often that fit doesn't happen. Somebody who is wanting a job is not getting the employer is not getting the employee that they want, because there seems to be a mismatch between the skill they have and the requirement that is there. So it appears as if the education system is chugging along, but is not being able to produce the kind of resources that are needed to fit aspirations on both sides. So is there a mismatch somewhere? How can that be solved? And even as you answer that, before you kind of conclude, what is your vision for the future of education?
Again, so the gap between industry and academia will always be there. You know, the industry moves at a speed which academia can't, right? We just have to look at how to minimize this gap, right? So the best way forward, I think, if there are more collaborations between different stakeholders like industry, colleges, schools, if they start just meeting together more often, right, I think that will solve a lot of the issues that we have, right? So I'm just simple collaboration between different stakeholders will solve a lot of the problems. Second is, the vision of education. I think, I may be more cynical, but there are pockets of excellence in our country. We also have to acknowledge that, right? Some of the students from some of the colleges that we produced have done very, very well outside India and in India itself, right? So we have pockets of excellence in our country. We need to see what practices they are adopting and probably mass adopt them at a lower level. I think that is one of the solutions that I think can solve a lot of our issues. Secondly, I think, getting a lot of educationists in this system. We also need, education is never talked about in parliament, and it controls 3 to 6% of our GDP. Defense is 2%, and we discuss defense issues. I think if we get more educationists in this system, right, that will also solve a lot of our problems. Simple solutions, right? And again, there is no best fit solution, but I think simple ideas can take our system forward.
Great, thanks. Whenever we are organizing such events, I sometimes often wonder, with my colleagues also, we discuss that we call all these eminent people and then we hardly give them time to really kind of discuss and share their views because there is so much to say. But I guess the idea of these events is to leave more questions in the minds of the audience also, then give them answers, so that everybody thinks about it and tries to see if there are ways and solutions that we can all collectively work towards. Thank you so much, Vineet. Thank you so much, Robin.
Yeah, Jyoti ji, just a last minute thing to all of us. You said the right thing. Yes, it's a time for the education system to re-educate itself, no doubt about that. But everything starts from us. So I request, it is the parents, it is the school, it is everybody. It's our responsibility. Once we start doing it, we will 100% जो आज के दिन में हो रहा है कि we are creating pressure cookers in students. I am 100% sure there will be no pressure cooker in the student. They will be living their life, they will be living it happily, and they will be living it smilingly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
much.
Thank you, Robert.